Welcome to another episode of Study Abroad Diaries Tales Beyond the Textbooks. Have you ever wondered what it's like to study abroad in Puerto Rico during the winter? Then this is for you. This podcast will be broken up into two parts where you get the full experience from different students' perspective. We have three students here with us. Please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Hi, I'm Kathryn. I'm a media communication studies major in my senior year.
Hello, everyone. I am Gabriel and Kathryn. I am a lower senior, currently studying Latin American and Caribbean Studies, also minoring in English literature, and I'm also a peer mentor of the illustrious Graduate program over here in Lima College.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice to see you guys. We'll hear from you guys. So the first question is, how did you originally hear about this program?
I heard about it from the study abroad's email the first year that it was happening, but I couldn't make it. So the second year, I was happy to see that the email had returned. And that's how I heard about it and decided to go to the info session.
Mhm. Well, that's fun.
In my beginning, as a matter of fact, during the beginning of my Lehman journey, I was tasked to interview Professor Magdalena Zagadia. And during the first time I ever met her, which was the spring of 2024, she brought up the idea of she decided to tell me all about the study abroad program in Puerto Rico. Initially, it was something that I was very obscure about, and I didn't anticipate to ever be an asset, to be an element of this lovely journey.
Wow, that's so cool. Speaking of Magdalena's class, how is Magdalena's class? Have you guys taken her class? And what are some requirements for like her class or like what does she make you guys do like for assignments and stuff?
So this semester is currently my fifth time ever taking a course of Professor Magdalena Zagadia, and it is like very I wouldn't say simple. It will be like it has like the necessary qualities. It's not too challenging, but it's also like gives you like the opportunity to be very transparent, to be very authentic with your thoughts. And she focuses mostly on the Latin American aspect, you tend to like stumble across those type of subject matters on a frequent basis. And she did help me become like very optimistic with my major, since she is a main focus in that department. So she has taught me a lot, and with her way of teaching, she gets straight to the points. It's not like run down sentences. She gets straight to the scenario.
Wow. That sounds like a really good professor.
And she's also very creative. Like the things she does, they're just out of the box. Like in her high field course, which is on Saturdays, we're basically doing Puerto Rico in reverse and in New York, where we're going on a lot of field trips. And it's
Ooh.
like culture, art, theater, it's all combined. So it's really fun. And then in
Wow.
her Latin American literature and translation course, which I took, you just read a book and you answer questions, and it's really fun. There's never a moment that it's dull.
Wow. That sounds like a really entertaining class. Like she seems to do a lot for her students. That's amazing. Yeah. What made you want to take her faculty-led program?
Well, I thought it was different. It's not like we're going to a university, which is like a traditional study abroad
Yeah.
sort of type program where you enroll in a university. I thought it would be different because now we're getting like this behind the scenes look with a faculty-led program. So I thought that would be more interesting and dynamic as everyone's involved. You're just not learning from what the professor's telling you that day and then just going home. No, she's like with you throughout, and it's more hands-on, more involved, and you don't feel alone. So that's what led me towards the faculty-led.
I felt also mutual that once I have heard about being a faculty-led program, I wasn't very sure like what to expect. But then once I started to like maneuver myself in that type of atmosphere and seeing like how friendly and how platonic the faculty members could be, it led me to like to unveil myself little by little, and to also become like this sense of portrayal.
Yeah, that's very interesting input because usually when students go abroad, like Catherine said before, the traditional way is to go to a university and you kind of figure it out yourself kind of vibes. But with faculty-led program, it's like Usually people don't really choose it. And it's so interesting to see your input on that, where you have some support, you have, a professor or like somebody helping you and maybe even understanding the culture even deeper than you can by yourself, you know? So that in itself is very interesting. Yeah. So what were your first impressions of Puerto Rico when you first arrived?
Well, since it was my first time ever visiting the lovely Isla del Encanto, like I've already had a sense of the visuals since ever since I was a kid. I always dreamed to ever arrive to this lovely island.
Hmm.
So once I left the airport, then I just started seeing my surrounding. It was like, wow, this is like utopia. It's like something I've never felt to experience. And it's also like, very nostalgic too, because it does remind me a lot of the Dominican Republic, which
Yeah.
is so, when it comes to the neighboring islands, we share a lot of things in common when it comes to like, the cuisine, when it comes to like our personality traits, when it comes to us maneuvering, it's just so similar. Right? Like, and the
Yeah.
societal norms are just like so on point.
Yeah, I believe it because I think Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic, we're very similar just because like we're kind of like basically neighbors, you know? So yeah, that's so is it like when you came in, does the smell like is it similar to DR or
It has that culture, like it had that tropical vibe. It has that cultural vibe. It's, I would say it's like very similar, but at the same time, distinctive in its own way. It's much more distinguishing.
Oh, it's warm. That was like, this is my second impression of it because I've gone already. So I already knew to expect like once the double doors open it from that airport, you're just gonna be hit with a heat wave,
Yeah,
which was
yeah.
which was very welcoming because we had just come from like below zero temperature.
That is true.
So
That is true. I
but
forgot about
not good
that.
hair time, that's for sure. And it's so welcoming because right away you have people saying like, "Where are you going? The Ubers are this way. Do you need help with your bag?" So it's warm and welcoming.
That's nice.
I also feel like the people there over there are much more friendly. It's like when you walk around the streets and then we just see each other's faces, we're always like very formal, like good afternoon, good morning,
Oh,
like a
that's
brief
nice.
talk. Something that I was never accustomed to because residing here in New York, it's like
Hmm.
everyone is in their own little bubble. Everyone is in their
Yeah.
own lane. So there's not much encounter. There's not much of interaction. And since I do consider myself to be a very platonic person, I felt that I was assimilated immediately.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, that seems like a vibe, honestly. Wow, that's cool. How did you engage with Puerto Rican culture?
Well, I'm Puerto Rican, so it
Mhm.
was like I wouldn't say it was like being it was like being somewhere that I'm familiar with just like, oh, at dinner when we would eat and they would be like buen provecho, and those are things like my aunt would tell me whenever I was eating. So it was just like
Yeah.
being right in my backyard, just talking, yeah, talking Spanish. And it wasn't that different from what I'm used to over here. So it was just real comfortable. It was, like you said, a vibe.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. They usually do that in like, like Hispanic restaurants as well. Like when they give you your food and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm eating. But they usually say that and then they just walk off. And I'm like, that's nice. So they do that too over there.
I, I found it very easy to embrace because since I'm also Hispanic Caribbean, just like Puerto Ricans, we tend to get along very well. It's like we have so much things in common. It's like so many things like to start groundbreaking on. So it was very easy to like adapt in this setting because it's like what Catherine mentioned. It's like sharing a household with a couple of your family members, and we just started like engaging conversation,
Yeah.
and it was already relatable.
That's nice. That really sounds really cool. Oh wow. Maybe I should go to Puerto Rico because my stepdad's Puerto Rican, so I'm like, hey, let's go to Puerto Rico, you know? That'd be a nice place to visit. Um, so what are some of your favorite places that you visited in Puerto Rico?
I would say my my top first one would be
Mhm.
Vieques. I loved the Alianza Mujeres Viequenses. They were super welcoming. They
Mm.
when it came to navigating throughout the islands and to start illustrating the past history of what Vieques has gone through for the past century, it was something. It was a sense of turmoil, but at the same time, it was like very educational, something very
Yeah.
informative. And the island is beautiful. Like when we were just traveling around, I just couldn't get my head away from the window while we were in the bus, just looking at the whole scenery. And by the time we arrived to Ceiba, which is something that I've always read about in Professor
Mhm.
Magdalena Tocadia's class, just looking at it, it's like, wow, I'm actually witnessing this, something that could only
Yeah.
like picture this in my dream. And then having like the history being told by this elderly woman who's very well educated
Mhm.
with the island. It was just something like very heartwarming.
Yeah, I feel like usually when you go to a different place, like another country, because I've been to quite a few countries myself, and every time I go to like a completely different country, I'm like, wow, this place actually exists. Like, I can't believe it. Like, mind blown, you know? Like, I know it exists, but it doesn't feel like it exists until you're actually there. So, yeah.
It's like you consider like to be unreachable for like
Yeah.
from your viewpoint.
Exactly, exactly. That's exactly how I would put it into words. But yeah, wow. What about you, Catherine?
I would have to say it was Manatee and Ponce, because in Manatee we went to a sugar plantation and we got to
Oh.
learn about slavery and how they're trying to reclaim history as opposed to like when they used to worship the owner of the plantation. So they're trying to rewrite to make it more accurate to what the story was at that plantation. And I loved the guide
Oh.
because he was so knowledgeable.
Mm,
And he took the initiative to like knock on doors and find people who could relate and have relations in that sugar plantation.
mm,
So it was like really enlightening. And I had never been to Manatee, and the greenery is just beautiful out there. And then with Ponce, I just love Ponce. People forget that Ponce was basically the capital before San Juan. So it has this
mm.
beauty. They call it like the Pearl of the South. And it's just beautiful. And that's where like all the revolutionary things happened. So I've always loved Ponce because you could see like the old Spanish architecture, and it still has that classic touch that no one's touched yet because of gentrification. So it's still beautiful.
Wow. Oh wow, that's very wow. And especially going back to the sugar plantains, I think that's very interesting because I feel like a lot of Latin America, they still have like these statues of like, like Christopher Columbus and stuff like that. So it's very interesting how, in that kind of setting that they're trying to like not rewrite, more like educate people more about the realities of history. And I think that's a very important thing. Even now, we need that more than ever, you know? So that is extremely important and very interesting. And I'm glad they're doing that. Like, props to them. Props. What's the funniest or most unexpected thing that happened to you during the trip?
Oh, the most unexpected thing. It would have to be when in Vieques, the white people, for lack of better term, came
Oh,
up to me on the beach, and I heard them say like, "What about her?" And
oh,
I knew it was gonna be a moment, and I said, "What about me?" And they
me.
turned around and they said, "Hablas inglés?"
Oh gosh.
Like
No
just
way.
like that. It's something I would never forget because that never happened to me, not even here. And I know I get the looks here, but I was like, yeah. And he was like, oh, oh. And you could see like their shame just bubbling in their
Right,
faces. Like, what
right.
did we do? And I was like, what do you want? Because I think I was so in shock
Oh my
of the moment.
gosh.
So I
That's
couldn't like
crazy.
answer good.
Mhm.
And I was like, what do you want? And they were like, oh, could you take our picture? And I was just like,
Oh my
really? For
gosh.
a picture? You couldn't just learn like the standard, can you take a picture in Spanish?
That, yeah, exactly, exactly. I've gotten that a few times too. Even in here, like in the Bronx. Like, I know somebody, like my neighbor basically. She was like, oh, I don't speak Spanish, and I was speaking to her in English. I'm like, why are we saying this? Like I barely speak Spanish myself. Like, why? You
No, and it's
know?
like a thing that happens there because when I went to have breakfast one morning where we were staying in the area in San Dulce, and I heard them basically say like, "Oh, we need someone who speaks English that could take our order." And I
Oh,
was like, "Is this really happening?"
that
Like
doesn't
I
sound good.
No, and I've always heard about it, and I've always heard like they're trying to get people to basically streamline English.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm not gonna see it firsthand. And I got to see it firsthand, and I was like,
Oh
it's
my
true. The rumors are
gosh.
true.
That's crazy. I didn't think that actually happened. I'm like
Yes,
shocked. That's shocking.
it was shocking.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
So I'm gonna come up with two scenarios. You mentioned
Mhm.
the funniest and unexpected, correct?
Yeah, yeah. Share as much as you want, honestly. Like, I'm here for the vibes. Let's go.
Okay. Okay, so I would say like the most shocking is like a little bit similar to Kathryn's experience in Vieques. So I was just in visiting a restaurant, right?
Mhm, mhm,
In Vieques. I was super dehydrated. We had a long day there that time and I really needed a cup of water. So I decided to approach the waiter and I
mhm,
asked him, ¿Me puede pasar un vaso de agua, al favor? And his
mhm,
response was like, "What?"
mhm.
And he was like, "Un vaso de agua." He was like, "What?" And I was like, "Wait, hold on." Like it was just super astonishing because in a Spanish speaking country like Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
you have places where they do not speak Spanish. It's so it was
No.
like super bizarre.
Wait, the
And
the waiter didn't speak Spanish?
nobody in that restaurant spoke Spanish. So it was like Alabama. And I believe some of the residents over there come from like sovereign states of the US because
Mhm,
I did speak to someone who did come from Arizona, and you're able to tell from the accent when
mhm.
someone comes from like a sovereign state. Not to
Yeah.
mention they had rock music playing in the background. It was like this is not Puerto
Oh,
Rican.
yeah. That's definitely not. If they can't speak Spanish, like I'm like, what?
I was rocking out to Bruce Springsteen, and I didn't realize that I'm singing along to the song in English. And then it hit me, and I was like, wait, what's happening right now?
That's crazy. Oh my God, that's insane. Wow. Oh, continue though.
Oh, so yes. So funniest experience, I would say, or one of the most funniest. Catherine recalled this very well, actually. So during our second day in Puerto Rico, we visited the office of Humanidades, right?
Mhm,
Because we
mhm,
were getting ready to make this arrangement for this signature that was required by the president of Humanidades. So
mhm,
before he was introduced to us. I remember I was wearing a suit because I felt like, it was something very formal. It was
mhm,
something
mhm,
that I had to be like, professionally locked into. But then I recalled that I left my phone in this room that was located near where he was having this small meeting with Dr.
mhm,
Levy and Professor Zagardia. So when I go reach for my phone, there was this glass door that looked invisible that I did not notice. So I literally slammed my face to the glass
mhm.
door by mistake, and the president turned around to
Oh
see if I
my
was doing all right.
gosh. Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
It was super embarrassing because it was before he was introduced to us. So it was like,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, that's some first impression right there.
Yeah, I mean, the most memorable like first impressions usually means like it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Like if you make something like let's say like a funny moment and stuff like that, they're like, "Oh, you're that one person, you know?" So it's not so bad if you think about it from another perspective. Positive thinking, positive thinking. What kind of art activities did you do and which ones do you prefer? Since I know that the Magdalena's faculty-led program is kind of like an arts kind of like program. So I was wondering what kind of things that you did that was like kind of artsy.
I would have to say when we visited Diogenes Ballesteros taller
Hmm.
because he showed us how he print makes. He's
Oh.
also a printmaker, so he showed us his printing making machine and how he had to go to like this organic form of ink because he caught like a really bad lung infection, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh
And
my.
he had to go from organic ink to organic ink because the toxic ink was bad, and we got to see one of his old classic prints, and it was like the
Hmm.
most beautiful thing ever. And I think that's really it from what I remember, because that was like the most art museum that we visited, and it's in his house.
Oh,
So we
oh,
got to see where he sleeps. Literally, you walk in and he's like, "This is my bed."
oh,
And then
wow.
and then he has his artwork all around, so it's pretty cool.
So one of my biggest remembrances it was in this exhibition that is actually located near the office of Humanidades.
Hmm.
So we had this guide who was illustrating to us the colonial masks and the colonial costumes that was utilized in the Americas during the early period of colonialism.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the reason why it was very striking to me is because it's something that is celebrated in Caribbean countries,
Yeah,
particularly um Hispanic Caribbean countries,
yeah.
because it's like often like seen as like a huge celebration, like
Hmm.
everyone's happy, everyone's cheerful, but it also has like a dark undertone
Yes.
because since it's like heavily resembles what is the colonial period. There's a reason why it has these origins. Like so for example, when we were targeting El Diablo Cojuelo, which is
Hmm.
actually something prominently known in the Dominican Republic. There's some face mask right here that's shaped like the devil, and
Yeah.
it's utilized to like to interpret joy, but it also has a dark undertone.
Hmm.
And one of the major messages that it has is that this mask was used as a mockery toward the Spanish conquistadors when
Hmm.
in when the slaves used to utilize this mask as like sense of respect, like to
Hmm.
demonstrate honor, when in reality they were just demonstrating mockery towards them. So I felt like there was something very compelling too, and that I was able to see like
Wow.
straightforward, like hands on.
Mm. Wow, that's interesting. And on Dominican, I've heard of like, the like kind of like the devil's mask before, and that I like that second part I genuinely didn't know about. Wow. You see, you learn something new every day, right? Wow. So it seems like you two definitely had like kind of like a tap on different aspects of Puerto Rican culture, which is really cool. Going to a little bit of a lighter topic, what was the best thing that you ate in Puerto Rico?
Oh, okay. I remember that because I'm still trying to go back to the restaurant. It's called El Mesón,
Hmm.
and it's sort of, I don't want to say Puerto Rican McDonald's, but literally that's what it is. It's
What
a
do you mean
sandwich
Puerto
shop.
Rican McDonald's?
It's like it's their fast food place.
Oh, I
And
see.
they do sandwiches there, but they also do like these chicken nuggets, and the chicken was so fresh because I didn't want a
Really?
sandwich. We had had sandwiches like the past couple days, and I was just sandwiched out. And I was like, I saw the guy's chicken nuggets on his tray, and I was like, I'm gonna eat that. Yes, they look great. And that's what I ordered. And they were just like the juiciest chicken I've ever had.
Ooh, that's
And
nice.
I'm like, I gotta go back to go to El Mesón.
That specific place, gotta go.
Yes, and they have one in Florida. So now I'm trying to convince anyone who wants to go with me to Florida just to
That's
go.
fire. I didn't know that. That's fire. That's so fire. They have any in New York since it's a fast food place, right?
No, they haven't put one. It's like I gotta get an investor out here because they're missing the best part.
No, for real. Wow. That's crazy that they only have one restaurant in Florida. Like literally insane.
Yeah, and I only heard about it from like a TikTok video where the guy was like, "Oh, the Maison has the best French fries." And
Mhm.
then they come to mention it like we're gonna go to eat at a Maison because it's right off the highway. And I'm like, I'm gonna try the French fries too because the guy on TikTok who lives here said the French fries are the best.
Period.
I would say, so beforehand, visiting Puerto Rico, I did not know what to expect because despite the fact living throughout New York practically all my life, I've
Yeah.
never tried Puerto Rican cuisine. It
No,
was I've
you're
never tried
lying.
Puerto Rican. I am being so sincere. I'm being so for real. I've never like I never considered like something very prevalent because I didn't know where to find that. Especially me coming
Wow.
from a Dominican neighborhood.
Yeah.
There's not much like restaurants that are just primarily targeting Puerto Rican cuisine. So when I first arrived to the island, I wasn't sure like what to expect.
Mhm.
So I remember one of the first restaurant that we visited. I decided to like get a similar dish
Mhm.
that us Dominicans eat. So us Dominicans we eat moro, right? And
Yup.
then there was a dish called uh, please don't kill me. I can't remember how to pronounce it correctly. Ma mapotiao,
What?
masopotiao. So it's
It was
like
that.
yeah, masopotiao.
Masopotia. And what is
So
it? Like, is it?
so it's like it's practically almost the same thing. Like
Mhm.
it's the equivalent to moro, but it has like its own seasoning and it's like
Mhm.
its own distinguishing flavor. Like when I was first served the place, since I'm not a picky person, I was like, wow, this looks delicious. And when I
Mm.
first started trying it out, I was wow, it's moro, but at the same time it's not. It's and I just and that was like my ongoing dish. Like consecutively, every time, most of the time we were visiting Puerto Rican restaurants, that was like my first primary choice, and I just couldn't
Ooh.
hesitate.
Wow, that sounds really good, actually. Wow, maybe I should try because usually, because my dad, well, my stepdad, he's Puerto Rican, as I said before, and usually the Puerto Rican dish I usually try, because sometimes he's lazy and he doesn't want to cook, is pollo guisado and rice with beans, and I'm like, you know what, that's Puerto Rican enough. I'll eat it, you know. But I'm very surprised, like, because the thing is that I feel like Dominican and Puerto Rican culture, they go hand in hand. Like they're like there's a lot of foods that we share in common. Like we both have plátanos in our food, basically. So it's very interesting to see that there's like a different aspect to a specific type of food that, I haven't heard of before. I'm definitely gonna try that now. Like that sounds interesting for sure. What was the coolest thing you learned about Puerto Rican culture or history? I know we typed on it a little bit, but let's just dive deeper into it.
So something that was extremely shocking to me is that so I consider myself like a historian. I like every day I'm always discovering history.
Mhm.
So there was like the small temple that we visited in Vieques, right? And something that was extremely astonishing is the one of our guides, the navigator, she was talking to us about this place, the small temple that actually used to be a prison 200 years ago.
Mhm.
And what shocked me the most was that when Dominican Republic liberated itself and received its independence the first time from Spain in
Mhm.
1821, the south that we were visiting was where they were held captive and murdered.
Oh,
And it did get me like a little bit uncomfortable, like
yeah.
understanding the part of history, me being myself Dominican, but I
Yeah.
also consider like a great triumph. Like this
Mm.
is where like the brave men
Yeah.
were were punished after doing our country a favor.
Hmm.
So it's like me being Dominican, it was an honor for me to visit this,
Yeah, yeah.
like this very significant realm.
Wow. That's wow, that's very like deep to be honest. I didn't know that either. You see, we're learning the thing is that I feel like me being a full Dominican, I'm fully Dominican, but I was born and raised here to the point where yes, I went to Dominican Republic many, many times, but at the same time I never really got to dive deep into the history, the culture. Well, the culture, yes, because hello. But definitely the history and like, the relationship that Dominican Republic has with different countries as well. And Puerto Rico is the same way, you know? So that is definitely a very interesting point for sure. Kathryn, what about you?
I would have to say it was Vieques when we
Hmm.
went to Vieques and they talked about how when the Navy took over during the Second World War and
Hmm.
they basically took people off the island and
Hmm.
you found out that although some of them went to the big island of Puerto Rico, they also were shipped to St. Croix. And
Wow.
I was kind of like shocked to hear that people lived in St. Croix
Hmm.
because you would think like, oh, okay, they would ship them off. Some are just gonna go to New York and some are just gonna go to the other side of Vieques or they're just
Hmm.
gonna go to Puerto Rico. But to hear that you're like people that live in Vieques might actually have ancestors in St.
Yeah.
Croix or like cousins that don't even know Puerto Rico or Vieques because they've been raised in St. Croix.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah.
that's kind of insane. And then I think a cool part, well, it's not cool, it's kind of sad, but it was also cool, was when we went to the sugar plantation in Manatee
Hmm.
and there was this blanket.
Hmm.
And this long blanket was white on white. And in the white part, you can see where the slaves would say that their captors were supposed to free them, and they
Yeah.
lied, and they were documenting it in this stitched blanket. And it had
Wow.
each part of that blanket had someone's story because they just
Wow.
wanted to be let go and to be freed. So I thought that was cool to see, sad,
Mhm.
but cool to see.